Got one of these 69 Cutlass mirrors on the side of your car. Mirror's nice and tight, but those little screws that hold it in are completely stripped out on the inside and can't get the Allen key in. Here's what you need to do instead of ordering a whole new mirror. Start by getting this thing off. If you can loosen the screws at all after some oil or whatnot, that's fine, but you cannot get into them from the inside of the door. What you're going to need is a small block of wood and a hammer. Start by holding the mirror so you don't drop it, and tap on this block against it until you can press it back enough to lift it out. I've already loosened this one, obviously, and done this. When you get it off, the button screws look like this. You'll have to use a pair of vice grips to hold on to it and unscrew it from the housing. Here's what you're going to need. A couple pair of hemostats or something small that locks to hold these while you're working with them. A welder. A 1/4 28 thread pitch Allen key. Make sure it's longer than the original one. And a washer that will fit just around the outside of this Allen key. You want the tolerance to be as tight as you can so you don't have to mess with it. Start by taking one of your hemostats and locking it around the Allen key and placing the washer on top so it sits there. You want the length down below here to be the same as the length prior on your last key. So stick them together with the washer sitting on top and make sure they're the same. If it's a little bit long, it can be ground down, but you don't want it too long. This is going to work out okay. You don't want this washer moving around while you're working with it, so take your second pair of hemostats and lock it across until you get it to sit just right. This is going to take a minute to get it just right. You want it fairly straight. You do not want it at an angle. Adjust your washer, get it in there good and even. You don't have to have a lot of pressure, just enough to hold it into place. Make sure you're not changing the length of that stud coming out. Double check to make sure that nothing is at an improper angle. Take your time on this step. That looks pretty straight. With my grounding clamp for my welder, I'm going to attach that to the hemostat. I don't have to attach it to everything I've just done. I just need a good ground for when I start welding on this. Again, double check everything to make sure it's straight. Get a good look at it from all directions that you can. It's not critical that it's absolutely perfect. It will pinch down against the weld and against the metal on the underside of the car body between there and the mirror. You've also got a gasket between your mirror and the car. That looks pretty good. With everything set up and looking straight, set up your welder. Make sure you've got the gas on so you don't get garbage welds. And tack a couple spots into place. You'll then be able to remove the hemostat. With that tacked into place, you can remove the hemostat that was holding the washer in place. And you're going to weld all around this until you build up weld into a dome. We're going to be grinding it down to smooth it out. In all honesty, this doesn't have to look pretty. You could just leave it tacked around the sides and be fine with it. I'm going to skip ahead to where I've got it all welded up. Let this cool down as you're working with it until you build up enough weld on the top to make it look kind of like a mushroom. If it's glowing while you're working on it, you're going to overheat and warp things. Threads try to expand, it'll be much tougher, so let it cool. You saw at the beginning that it was pretty much glowing. That was my last pass on the weld there. Not the prettiest looking thing, but we're going to grind it down to make it look nice and smooth. With my part welded up, I'm going to use the hemostat or a pair of small vice grips lightly secured to this in order to grind this top portion smooth. I'm not going to bother having you watch me grind. I'm simply going to skip ahead until it's all done. Okay, so I ground this down, smoothed it out, polished it up a little bit. It is just a tiny bit tilted to one side, and that is not going to make a big difference on this. We've got a concave area here. It's not perfectly flat anyways, and the metal is thin enough that it's going to pull up and adjust to whatever we do. If you're really worried about it, I'd make a second one, redo it that way. I would obviously clean this up quite a bit more, and I would definitely put anti-seize on the threads before installing it permanently. I'd probably put a little bit of a grease on this to ensure that it holds in place as well. I did have to grind around the outside of this washer on this one and the back one because the hole is smaller and the washer I chose did not quite fit. So I ground it around a little bit. You could actually grind two flats in it on the side as well and do the same thing, but when you were pulling it out, you'd have to make sure that you got those flats aligned perfectly. I'm going to put my gasket on the correct way with these two little tabs up into the mirror. And again, just to show you that it fits, because I would definitely clean this up quite a bit more before putting it into place, and I'm actually doing some paint on this car. So I've just got it threaded in, one or two threads to get that first one in the back, and I like it to be tight. I don't really like it sliding around. I want to make sure I have enough area to really grab onto this. I can probably unscrew it. There we go. Slides right into place. Now, tightening this. I can't stress this enough unless you like digging for these parts. To tighten this, you're going to put your Allen key in up top, and you're going to turn it counterclockwise. That is reversed from what you think it is. Counterclockwise to tighten this, because the threads are sucking up into the mirror. If you go the other way, you're going to loosen it until it falls out, down inside the door, and if you've got the panels on or the window in or everything else, it is a pain to get at. I would also advise not using stainless hardware because it's not magnetic. And then if you lose it down there and you try to get it with a magnet, that's not happening. So again, that back tab was a tiny bit crooked. My front tab was a tiniest bit crooked, but you know, something I was really staring at to see the difference of. The gasket's not quite in the exact place, but it doesn't matter. I'm going to be taking this off momentarily. I don't really like that Allen key. I don't think it's absolutely the perfect size, so I will go to my T. Which I know is the right size. Just tighten it down a little bit. Not moving. My mirror is still nice and stable. It's not wobbly or anything, so I did not need to order an $80 or $100 mirror out of this. I simply needed to spend about $2 or $3 to get the hardware and a little bit of time to make those little screws. Hopefully this helps you out.